welcome to Bolsters and Banter. I'm your host, Tyler, and with me is not Nick, is Glenn. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Glenn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Glenn. You can find me on Gallif's Minis, either on Instagram or YouTube.
Yep, and I am having Glenn come on because I came across one of Glenn's minis, and I was blown away, and I've just come to find out that he also has a lot of very other interesting ones. The one I saw was a lictor that you painted in a thermal screen. I don't know, a thermal image, much like what the Predator sees.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and now that's kind of my shtick, if you will, is I just make 40K crossovers from all kinds of stuff. A lot of things that kind of GW retroactively got inspired by, and I'm kind of putting it back, like Xenomorph Gene Stealers. I have some of those. But, you know, I Saturday morning cartoons, 1980s science fiction action, pop culture icon stuff. I like taking 40K minis and turning them into something else that's not quite in the universe. And for my lictor, I've always been fascinated with the fact that Games Workshop has taken inspiration from the Predator movies in 3 different distinct ways. So you have your Eldar striking scorpions that have the dreadlocks and the silent stalker. Then you had the Kroot carnivore who, they are tribalistic, very jungle fighter kind of aliens. There's one of the older minis, not one of the newer kits, but the previous plastic Kroot kit had a pistol in it that was very much like the 1700s pistol that Danny Glover gets in Predator 2.
Yeah,
and so it's like
you don't have to look
Games Workshop
to see where GW is getting a lot of these ideas.
I like that the lictor has that invisibility aspect to it. So since in my collection I already have some Kroot with like some striking scorpion war gear to kind of emulate the Predator, I wanted to do something with the lictor, and so I just got this concept to put it in the thermal vision. And lore-wise, the lictors can hide their heat, so in general they probably wouldn't be seen on thermal.
It doesn't make sense in the context, like if you were like looking at this on a tabletop or anything. But I think something that a lot of people in 40K might not initially think of is you don't have to play 40K, you don't have to make lore accurate minis, you can just paint. It is a hobby. And I love that you do that, especially with these very unique ideas.
And I didn't even know if I was going to be able to pull it off. That's why I had done a tutorial. I took a picture every step that I was doing. I sent you a link to that if you're going to put that in the description. But
yep.
Basically, I just started with a very, very light blue prime. Just prime the whole thing that color. And then I did a dry brush of darker blue successfully, up to almost like black at the very, very extremities where it would be absolutely the coldest. And then I went over all the areas that I was going to have the heat bloom, like his chest and the tentacles and the eyes and maybe some of the joints. And I put white. I just straight white from the pot on all those areas so that I could then use fluorescent paint. So I covered that in all the areas that were white in fluorescent yellow. And then once that was dry, I took fluorescent green and outlined, doing a little bit of overlap of both the yellow and the blue behind it. And then in the very, very center areas, I took a fluorescent orange and watered it down a bit and got it in the recesses. And that was it. Like, it's not any more complicated than that.
All right, so question. You were kind of alluding to this, and this was one of the biggest questions I had was, how did you go about actually planning where to make the hot spots and the cold spots? Did you do that just kind of off of general knowledge? Did you have any references you looked at?
Well, and I actually had posted my idea on this concept on Facebook. I'm part of various different groups and painting groups. And I had some guys that actually sent some pictures of actual heat vision examples. That was a really big help. But mainly, I just knew that I wanted the fleshier bits to be green So like in the little bits of joint in the lictor, or like just underneath their big talons. So I knew that the fleshier bits I wanted to just be green, just a little bit warmer than the chitin. You know, the hard armor parts needed to be blue. You know, they needed to be the
Of
coldest.
course.
Extremities also needed to be the coldest. And then I knew that I wanted the eyes to really pop, so that's why they got the deepest orange that I could get. And then just a little bit in the chest, and then just areas where it would be closest to the internal part of the body. So like there's little sphericals in their head and on their tail, I guess where they breathe. Like on an insect, that's where air passes through so that they can, because they don't have hearts for their circulatory system.
Yep.
So I knew that that would be where something would be coming in and out of the body, and so there'd be heat there. So I just kind of just played it by ear, pretty much.
Okay. I gotta commend you on thinking that through. Because I mean, I know about the insects and whatnot, but I never thought to actually analyze Tyranid models from like I guess like a biology standpoint to actually tell what they do. Because I don't know, 40k is very silly, and I guess for this you kind of had to take it pretty seriously to pull it off. Because you did pull it off very well. It's very believable.
I think another thing that kind of sells the effect is that I put aquarium plants on the base.
I saw that.
And painted them dark blue.
I saw that. I was like, no, those aren't painted. He got them like that.
Well, actually, they were green. So in my little painting tutorial, they were green. So I did paint them because I wanted it to match the same blue. But I could have, yeah. If I found the right blue for aquarium paints, I probably could have. But I just had some in them. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the lictor, which I think is phenomenal. It actually kind of inspired us to do a thing, which if you guys are watching, you can expect to see soon. We're gonna do a kind of like minis of the month where we look at either people's actual submissions, or we might just do the coolest thing we've seen. I haven't yet figured that out, but I wanted to also take a look at your other minis, because your profile picture is a very interesting one. Tell us about your profile picture. I'm going to put on screen bigger so people can actually see it.
So I'm also a really big Star Wars fan. If you do check out my YouTube channel, it's actually Gallus minis and lightsabers. So I had collected some like electronic lightsabers. I got a lot of videos on that, but a lot of my newer ones are mini exclusive. But I've got quite a few Star Wars mini crossovers. 40k minis that I made into Star Wars things. And one of them is my profile picture, which is the Phobos Marine that came out a few years ago with that like over hood. As soon as I saw that, I was like, that's a Jedi. And he's a librarian too, which is basically, they've got force powers.
The Phobos librarian.
They have force weapons. So I cut off a sword. I replaced it with a Necron green rod that I had in my bits box, and just painted the robe brown and the armor white, like the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan wore armor.
It's the classic Jedi general armor.
Yep. And then in that picture, in my profile specifically, I lined up a really bright green laser pointer to hit the green rod just right so that it actually looks like it's ignited.
Yeah, it even looks like you have kind of like a contact point right there. I mean, you don't have the lightsaber actually hitting anything, but it almost looks like it, and I think that's great. Or it's almost like it's powering up and it just hasn't fully gotten there.
And that's the spot where the laser pointer actually hit.
Yeah, it's very neat.
But I also have a Darth Vader and Stormtrooper out of Gravis, the Gravis captain, and he's holding his hand out, force choking someone. Of course, just regular intercessors painted white for Stormtroopers. So
awesome.
Got a lot of cool stuff.
Okay. So I don't want to take a whole lot more of your time. I'm definitely going to show off anything else you want to share towards the end of the video and kind of like a little montage. But the real reason I wanted to get you on here, and we were talking a little bit before and you agreed with me. So something we try to do is get new people into the hobby. And I think a lot of people are put off from the hobby because they have to pick their faction. They have to play the tabletop. They have to build their minis. They have to paint their minis like they are in the box art. And there's always examples of people going out and just doing things for fun. But I think you, out of anybody I've seen, is the greatest example of going out of the way and doing just something that means something to you and you only, and doing it solely because it is fun. Because people forget that 40K is a hobby. And I'd like you to talk kind of about your inspiration behind wanting to do these. Because, like, do you even play the tabletop?
I haven't in a while. I mean, I play my son. I've been playing, or I've been involved in this hobby for over 20 years. And I used to play very often, and most of my models were, I mean, I was always creative if I want to toot my own horn. I never really.
Yeah, no, it's something proud of.
But I would still like, my main faction is Eldar. But I started with Tyranids. I wasn't very good at them, so that's why I ended up selling them. But eventually I hit my stride with Eldar. I still have Eldar, but as I've gotten better as a painter, I will get like some of the, and especially since some of the newer kits look way better than when I started. So I do have like a traditionally painted army, and I actually do like some of the box, but I can't pick one. So in addition to all my crossovers, like I have one of my display cases at home has nothing but Space Marines versus Chaos Space Marines painted like the Legions. It's like I bought a thing of 5 Assault Intercessors and 5 regular Intercessors, and I've got a Blood Angel one.
Heresy Legions?
No, well, yeah, I say Legions, but it's more the chapters. Okay. So like I have an Imperial Fist, I've got a Blood Angel, but I also have a Black Templar. Okay. And then on the Chaos side, same thing. So I like that just as a, and that's really the tip that I would give, is that don't just pick one scheme, because yes, if you keep practicing that scheme, you'll get better at it, but experiment with other stuff. Buy a box of 10 Marines and paint every single one of them different, because you're going to find that not only are you're going to find a color that you like and it's easier to work with, but it'll also test your techniques. And I didn't start getting really...
I'm gonna have to really agree with you here.
Oh, go ahead.
So, kind of getting into my side of things, this is something people might have picked on. I have not been able to really have a concrete faction. I have been all over the place, from Tal to Custodes, the Black Templars to Astra Militarum, and I think a lot of it is because I want to paint so much. It's hard for me to just stick with one aesthetic. And I think I really wish I met you at the onset of my hobby journey, because I think for anybody watching this, if you're not quite 100% dead set on what you want to do, even if you are, even if you know the whole army you're going to collect, I think it is important to experiment and express your creativity and do whatever you find fun, or whatever you can think of that has been done, or doesn't even make sense.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I also wanted to add, sometimes you got to let your OCD kick in with some things. So like with the chaos things that I have, I can't just pick one god. So if I wanted to do a thing of demonettes, well, now I have to do bloodletters and pink horrors and plague bears, because I have to have one of each. For that, and again, that's led to me painting a bunch of different stuff and getting a lot of experience. But then every now and again, I'll just do something that's just wacky and fun. For me, it actually started with the Invader ATV. When that came out and everybody was making fun of it and saying it looked like Mario Kart, I knew I had to paint that. So I got one, painted it like Mario Kart, and that is how I got started with my crossovers. And I have now painted way more 40K crossover stuff than I think I mean, definitely more than what I have got in my Eldar, any other army that I've ever played.
That's really impressive if you've done more than your whole army. And yeah, I gotta agree with you about learning about the new skills. Like when I was just painting Tau, I was doing primary colors and whatnot. When I went on to like I started with a little bit of Dark Angels. I was working with contrast paints and working on these different factions with their different color schemes, their different textures. Once you do decide what you're really going to do, you have a wider skill set. So that is definitely a very nice thing.
And looking up different painting techniques too. There's a painting technique that I've actually been using a lot more lately, and it's more of a beginner technique.
Really?
I'm sure you've heard of slap chop.
Yeah, I've heard people complain about it. I don't see the problem. You want
Well,
to
and I
give a quick pitch on what it
yeah
is?
yeah. So basically, you take your miniature, you prime it in a very dark color, usually black, and then from the top down, you spray it with a very light color, usually white. I go one step further and I'll actually dry brush white over it so that the very, very edges get picked out, and you end up with a very high contrast mini that's got really dark darks and really light lights. And then you take things like contrast paints and other speed paints, really watered down paints, and you just slap that on it. And the idea is that you only really have to do that one color, and all of your highlights and shades are done for you with that prime and highlight that you did before putting any paint on there. But I
Okay.
will say that the complaint people have is that that's where people stop. They just put that wash on there of whatever color, and then that's it. And it's very effective for beginners. And I think if you're going to paint a whole army and you want to paint it fast, that is the best way to do it, in my opinion. But to push yourself a little bit farther, use that as a starting point so that you know where your highlights and shades are going to be, and maybe do a little bit more. So that's kind of what I push myself a little bit. I tend to not use contrast paints over just straight white at all. Like right now, I'm painting I'm painting a Ravener, and I'm doing it in the color scheme of Zerg from the StarCraft games. So a lot of purples and browns.
Okay.
The purple, I did the whole thing. I actually prime gray when I'm doing lighter models, and then do a white dry brush over it.
Hmm.
And so for the fleshy parts that are purple, I actually started pink, and then I put a contrast purple over it. So it keeps the hue, the vibrancy. I think that's what slap chop sometimes loses, is that vibrancy.
Yeah.
Even though it's got a lot of saturation, it's not often very vibrant. But if you put a color underneath and then put your contrast paint, I think it looks great.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have to take things a step further, like especially when you're new and whatnot. Um, I think that's very important. Something I want to mention, because I feel like a new player who's once again in 40k is gonna see this, see the thumbnail of your miniature, and think it's amazing, and think they can never do it. And even myself, I don't know if I could pull it off. I want to get a picture of one of
I
your first
didn't.
minis, because I know you weren't at this skill level to begin with.
That's going to be hard to find because I didn't start
It
posting
doesn't have to
stuff
be like
on
your first,
Instagram.
but like I want to point out that, like, unless you really push yourself and mess up your minis because you're trying out these different things, you're not gonna get to a good, where you really want to be.
Oh yeah. Well, on my Instagram though, most of the stuff is my newer stuff because I didn't actually use Instagram until like a couple years ago.
Hmm.
But I mentioned to you that I was using my Blogspot, and actually the painting tutorial that I sent you is on my Blogspot, and so you can actually search on I think on the right, dates, and I think it goes all the way back to 2008,
Okay.
maybe 2009. And there's definitely some of my older pictures there. Especially in the beginning, I was doing more like commission work for some of my local gaming club. A lot of people wanted to play the game, but didn't want to get their miniatures painted up to tabletop. And so I would they'd pay me like $1 for a mini, or give me extra bits. And that's how I funded my initial adventure, so to speak. But I wouldn't be like too terribly specific with it, but that also gave me practice, because I think I did like 300 Skaven for a guy once
It'd be a
in three
lot
weeks.
of muscle memory and a lot of doing different things. So
Yeah. But in that case, it was just like a really dark prime, just picking out a little bit of cloth, like single color stuff. I wasn't doing highlights and shades. Um, but if you stay outside of my commission work section, you'll see some of my older stuff. I've got, I don't know if I still have the picture online for it, but I had some old crossovers where I actually got started with Lord of the Rings.
okay.
And one of the Gondorian soldiers, they have little wings on their head. but I painted it like the Dark Knight. So it's a
Oh,
little Batman.
that's neat.
But that's a really old version, and then I've got a much newer version of Batman, of the Batmarine, with an intercessor with a power fist and a grappling gun. So I don't know if maybe that could be a comparison to do those, but
Okay.
also some of my older pictures weren't the best.
Okay. Real quick before I let you go, and get your final thoughts on things. Uh, have you thought of doing a Night Lord as Batman?
Yes, I have. I
Do you,
That was
do
top
you
on the
have
list,
one?
but I don't
Oh,
because it feeds into my OCD. If I was going to
okay.
do a Batman Night Lord, I would have to do one of the every other 9 Chaos Warband. And I
The
just,
World Eater Bane.
yeah, something like that. And I was just like, I don't, I'm running out of room, to be honest.
Fair enough. Okay. So I'll let you go. But is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything you want to leave everybody else off with?
You mentioned that you weren't really sure if you were going to be able to pull off that thermal vision. And that Lictor, never tried anything like that. I had a concept in my mind. I kind of had an idea what might work, and I just did it. And so the tutorial that I put on is pictures step by step, initially because I wanted to track my own process.
Okay.
But it actually started to work out so well that I turned it into a painting tutorial. So basically, try stuff even if you don't think it's going to work out.
I
Paint
think
isn't going to hurt the mini.
I think that's a pretty important thing and definitely inspirational because I can't say that I have done a mini without a tutorial. Without at least like knowing what colors and where they go. So yeah, yeah, okay. Well, I think that does about does it. Like I said, I'm gonna link all your stuff if you guys want to go check out his channel, his blog, his tutorials, anything like that. Feel free. I'm also gonna share some of his minis after this video ends. Glenn, any last things?
No, just appreciate you reaching out, man. This is really fun.
Awesome. Well, I cannot wait to see what else we get to see from you, and I think that about does it.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good
Peace.
one.